Okay guys, here I am rolling with my student Adam. I do a little knee to chest to attempt to pull my knee in and get my guard back, but he circles around. Plus with his length, it's a little bit challenging for me because I'm used to being the longer person. I use my 2 feet here to squeeze and extend his arm and potentially open up some space for me to get through, but it didn't work. I was just kind of fooling around. I turtle, he's attacking my neck, which means as soon as that lapel gets fed, I always sit to the far side hip. And what that does is it unravels the choke. Here, I'm just waiting for my next opportunity, and I turtle back. He does a nice job, heavy on me, and circles back around. And I realize after 2 of these, that's not going to work. So I bust out the old Nino Chebri secret side control escape, where I rock down and then up, and then I just tip him where he has no base, which is towards his shoulder. It's a little bit hard because he's probably got about 50, 60 pounds on me, but it still works quite well. This is my ace up my sleeve side control escape. Now I just collect his arm, so I lift his elbow deep off the ground, shoulder maybe even off the ground. I connect my hand to my hamstring, and I just rest all of my weight on one spot on his chest, and I believe they call that the soul crusher. In this next round, he starts on the bottom, and he starts in a sit-up guard, and then he goes to my sleeve and sits back into a De La Riva, and I actually love this, especially for someone as tall as him. This is very dominant set of grips in a guard position, but he lets go of my sleeve. And I use that to stuff his foot, and I start to close his space. To me, if you're that much taller and lankier than everyone else, you should play at a long range, right? Because that's where you'll have the advantage that no one else has. So once I close in this intermediate space, I use my weight. I start stacking him sideways, so his hips are always facing away. But when he makes that adjustment, I sit into my knee cut, and I walk him backwards so my hip can slip inside of the knee shield, and that's how I get my side control. You can see I use my north knee, my left knee, to staple his arm, and he's overreaching with his underhook here, so I feed into a head and arm control, but I also step over. This is a signature Marcelo Garcia move. When people used to sit up on the underhook, he'd always snap on an omoplata, and I use a Kimura grip just to secure him, and I'm not sure which one he taps to. It could be either far shoulder or omoplata shoulder. This time I start on the bottom. I connect myself to one of his legs. He enters this HQ position, and he's really heavy to his right, which is my left, and he gives me the arm. So I'm looking for my favorite sweep, which is the unstoppable sweep. I just wait for him to lift his hand so that I'm not forcing it, and there it is. I have done that sweep with him before in the private lessons, so this is just me explaining to him why and how that happened. We switch again, top and bottom. He enters that similar position, enters with his 2 butterflies and gets a cross collar, all excellent, especially again with his range. I use his head as an anchor, and he allows me to control his head. So that I went from a shallow head control to a deep one, and that was not the best for him. I think I hit him with a Von Flue choke there, but we just continue now. Now he's addressing my shoulder pressure. But the problem is then he exposes his right elbow. You can see how high up on his body it's come and away from his hip. And that's how I elbow walk him all the way until I can grab a deep lat grip. I'm not even sure what I want at this point, but I just know that if I'm pressuring him and maybe choking him with my shoulder and his elbow's in an uncomfortable position, that he'll be less focused on the bound escape. And that's all I care about. It's not that I'm hunting any one submission. Now from here, he's uncomfortable, but he's not getting choked. So I realize this, and I have to make a move to something else. And he ends up driving my head back away, back to the south side. And I'm just trying to figure out what I want to do next. His right elbow is high and exposed. His left elbow is also high and exposed. So I'm just trying to figure out what the next best move is. He squirms around a little bit. Eventually his arm breaks free, and I decide that, okay, I'm going to switch. So I pin his wrist because it's high, and here it's weak. So I just drive my body through my arm, pin his wrist, and then I try to feed his tricep. And what that does is normally it exposes that arm, but because he punched that arm so aggressively, it fed me into the triangle. And since that arm of his right arm was overreaching, I just finished with the arm bar. So overall, Adam did a great job here. I was just doing this for learning.